and I'm probably not going to remember all your names, but I'm Bill Cranford, as Andy said, and I work for a company called Phillips Corporation. So Phillips Corporation is a distributor and reseller and service provider for CNC machinery. Basically think of that as manufacturing equipment. So we sell computer-controlled mills and lathes. Anybody know what a mill or a lathe is? I mean, you have machines at your school, so you might know. Yeah, there's a machine shop right down the hall. Okay, so a mill is you put a part in the machine and the tool that cuts it spins. And a lathe is you put a part in a machine and the tool stays still and the part spins.
Oh,
so there's an easy way for you to remember the two. We also sell 3D printers, robots, so all that cool futuristic stuff that kids get excited about, we sell that stuff too. Just last week I was down in Kinston, and I have thousands upon thousands of customer stories, and if you can think of it, it's probably made in the southeast of the United States, or it's about 2 degrees of separation from something that's made in the southeast of the United States. And that's what's really fascinating about my job. But anyway, I was just at a shop where we were doing a robot integration. So we have a machine that's making parts. It's this same part that's been made for probably the better part of 65 years. It's just an oil manifold block for fluid to flow through it. But we're innovating their process and making their profit stream better by making it faster, by automating it with a robot. And that doesn't take away the personnel who works, because like for you guys, what you want to look for is, how do I put a person in a job somewhere in the future? And robots are not like scary future, take everybody's job robots. They're get rid of dull, dirty, dangerous work and empower people to have better lives and learn a better skill. So that's a common misconception with a robot. But anyway, so I work for this company, Phillips Corporation, and I may chase some rabbits. So I used to work as a tour guide at a zip line, and I would tell our groups, I have what is it? Not OCD, that's the other one. ADLS, and that's attention deficit look squirrel. Okay, so if I chase a rabbit and disappear on a trail, I'm sorry. You guys can just raise your hand and call me back in the line. But anyway, so I work for this company, Phillips Corporation, and we sell and service all of this equipment. Our main bread and butter is Haas, and you may be familiar with the Haas brand. Obviously, Gene Haas's name's on the building. A few years ago, Gene Haas, through his grant initiative, which he gives scholarship money and endowment money to schools all over the country, and RCC was fortunate to get $1 million grant. I was very honored and privileged to be a small part of that process, in that as a student and an employee, I was able to write a couple of recommendation letters that helped with them getting that grant. So I got to be here for that day and the ribbon cutting and the unveiling of the name and all that stuff. But it's a great honor. So RCC was one of the last schools in the country to get $1 million. After that word got out, so many schools kind of inundated their system with requests, they had to kind of back down that top tier donation level, because he just couldn't afford to just keep giving out $1 million every couple of months to a school. So anyway, so they don't really do $1 million grants anymore, but RCC got one. And so I'm a product of this system here at this school. I'll give you my story. I graduated high school at Southwest Randolph. My wife graduated from Southwest Randolph. We didn't know each other in high school, probably for the best. She's a couple years older than me. But anyway, so I graduated from Southwest, and then I went to the Marine Corps for 4 years. When I was in high school, I kind of shied away from the bricklaying, woodworking, the kind of skill stuff, because as a high school student, I didn't really process, and nobody ever told me, that there was a way to take those skilled labor jobs and turn those into a profession. I always just saw that as day laborer work and dirty, gritty, and I didn't want to do that kind of stuff. But I also didn't have the discipline, and I knew I didn't have the discipline to go to a 4-year school. So for me, military was a good path, but I think, and as I tell this story of how I got where I am, you'll see where there was an opportunity there. If I had known about the path that I could have taken by learning some of those skills and trades, I might would have gotten there faster, or where I am now, and done a slightly different path. But all that being said, I went to the Marine Corps after high school. I did 4 years in the Marine Corps. I considered staying longer, but September 11th had just happened and recruiting numbers were great, and so there wasn't a lot of incentive to stay. And I was about to get married to that same girl. So, I just thought, well, starting a marriage in the military, and it's just stressful, so I got out. I got out and I went to work in the dairy industry, so I was a milkman for about almost 10 years. Here locally, Randolph County, Davidson County. Really enjoyed that. What I really enjoyed most about that job wasn't getting up at 2 a.m. It wasn't dealing with spoiled milk. It was dealing with customers. So that customer conversation interaction, super enjoyable. And I find that that's probably the thing I enjoy most about my job now. But did that sales role and really thought there was an opportunity in that company to move up into management. And so having access to, government school assistance through the Montgomery GI Bill and the then Marine Corps Scholarship Program, which now it all falls under the post-September 11th stuff that changed. But anyway, I had access to a decent amount of money. So I said, well, I'm going to go to school at RCC, and I'm going to get my 2-year degree, and then I'll transfer to a real school. Because that's what we had always heard, right? And that's even like the message RCC was promoting at the time I started to come here back in 2003 of, yeah, come here, get your 2-year degree, and then go to a real school. And I really think that's a bad mentality. Like, I think that's something we've got to work hard, and that's why I like speaking and stuff, because it's my goal to try to change that mindset. You'd be surprised how many guidance counselors I've spoken with that say, oh yeah, I understand what you're saying, and then I ask, like, where's your kid going to go to school? Oh, well, my kid's at UNC Chapel. So they understand, but they're not promoting it. And so, like, that's my goal, is to try to change that mentality and that message. So I came here initially with the intent of 2-year degree, transfer to a 4-year school, do something in business administration, business management. And of course I was taking classes at night and working about 2 a.m. to noon every day, and then coming to school, sometimes at school, sometimes online, and doing those classes mostly part-time. Every once in a while, scheduling would work out where a semester could be full-time, but those are tough semesters. And so that 2-year degree probably took about 3.5. And while I was in that process, RCC started their business administration program. And so I was like, well, man, I could just do business here and I don't have to travel to another school. I can keep working, can keep doing it part-time. So that's what I did. So I started into the business administration program here. And then about the time that degree was finishing up, again, because I'm doing it like part-time at night, whatever, the economy kind of went south. Things got kind of crappy. The dairy business slowed up. Everybody stopped buying expensive milk and started buying cheaper milk. And, so I started making less money and losing customers and having to travel more. And then our dairy locally here in Asheboro closed, and they moved all the operation back to Winston-Salem. So then I was forced to look at a commute all the way to Winston every morning at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then back to my area in Asheboro, and then back to Winston-Salem in the afternoon, and then back to Asheboro. And then, that's not feasible. So I said, well, I guess I'm going to take a severance package. So that all happened in like July. So I'm going to back you up that same year, 2010, to like March, April time frame. My wife, who's a school social worker here in Randolph County Schools, in the Archdale Trinity area, Kendra Cranford. So anyway, she took some 8th graders. Remember, she said 8th grade. She took some 8th graders to a tour of a couple factories and RCC. Well, she came to RCC, and of course, by this time, I'm almost a tenured professional student here at RCC. She came home from that tour and said, hey, we went to the machining department. That was pretty cool. That's like the kind of stuff you're into, like how stuff's made and making stuff. You should go talk to those people. And I was like, yeah, I probably should. Good idea. And then, like every good husband, I didn't do it. So then fast forward back to July, I come home and I say, well, babe, I think I'm going to have to take a severance package, and I'm going to have to find some other line of work to get into. And she said, well, did you ever go talk to those people in the machining department? And I said, of course I did. So you know, like the next day I was back here at the school and came and talked to Mitchell and Garrett in the machining department, and really was like a light bulb went off. I was like, yeah, this is where I want to be. I want to make stuff. I want to learn how stuff's made. And so I immediately just rolled that second 2-year degree into a third 2-year degree in the machining department, and did that third 2-year degree as like a full-time student, working some part-time at a zip line and a machine shop, and working here in administration at the front desk, enrolling students, and then my last semester at RCC, all my Marine Corps money had finally ran out. So I got like 8 good years of money out of the Marine Corps as like a second job to be a student. But anyway, I was lucky enough to be selected as an ambassador for the school. So I was the Randolph Rotary Scholar and an ambassador for RCC. And so I got to speak to the Rotary Club, I got to speak to business owners, really enjoyed doing that, being a spokesperson for the college. Again, having been basically a professional student. And then when I finished the 2-year machining degree, I'd already been in a conversation with this company, Phillips Corporation, while I was in school. And you know, it's like, I'd like to come work for you guys, but I'm also trying to get some experience in the industry and understand it, so you know, we can work together on that. And they offered me a position as a service technician, so working on the machines and installing new machines. And I thought, that's great. That'll really give me a lot of, you know, hands-on experience with the equipment and make me a better salesperson and spokesperson later, because I'll actually know how they work. So I took that position and went to work for Phillips Corporation in 2013 as a service technician, and did that for almost 5 years. In my interview, I told the folks at the company that were interviewing me that my 5-year plan was to look for an opportunity to get back into sales. Because again, I really enjoyed that, and the part of my job as a service technician that I enjoyed most was fixing the customer, not necessarily fixing their machine. Because you know, if you own a piece of equipment, whether it's your car or your lawnmower or whatever, and something on it stops working, you immediately lose a little faith. Why did that break? Why didn't that work? And so restoring that reputation by not just going in and throwing a part on it, but explaining maybe what went wrong, or giving the customer options to how to better maintain that piece of equipment. You know, those kinds of conversations, repairing the customer, were just as important to me as repairing the machine. And so I still get that in sales. We just do it, you know, it's a slightly different approach. But anyway, so then I moved over into sales in 2018, and I've been doing that ever since and really enjoy it. It gives me a lot of flexibility in my schedule, so I can take my daughter to work or to school most days. I was just telling Andy this summer, when school's back out again, I can start taking my daughter with me to visit customers and see manufacturing. So I'm looking forward to that, because she's very interested in how it all works, and the machines and the robots and all that stuff. So that'll be fun. And yeah, if I need to take a day, I take a day. My hours are very flexible. Of course, being in sales, you're always working, right? If my phone rings and somebody wants to buy something, they become a priority, because you know, you don't want them to have to wait. Unfortunately, the buying market for things, and you've probably seen this with cars, it's harder to get stuff right now. And so when somebody's ready to buy, they've probably already been thinking about it for a year or 6 months or whatever. So the last thing you want to do is ask them to wait another 6 months or a year. So you kind of make it a priority. But anyway, so that's a little bit about my story of how I went from high school to here. But again, if I'd have known in high school, like, I could get to a sales role in manufacturing and be a spokesperson for a company, I would have been interested in that in high school, because I was always like, I was the kind of student who would hyper focus on a thing, and I've always been a car guy. So like in high school, I was always really interested in cars. So if I had known like I could get into manufacturing that supported the automotive industry, you know, and been zeroed in on that as an area of expertise, I might would have focused my efforts on that in high school instead of this weird roundabout way that I got into manufacturing. And I think one of the things that comes up in conversation for me a lot with regard to manufacturing is people don't often associate all of the roles that manufacturing incorporate or need in order to be successful. So, I have some small machine shops. I have some single owner operator shops. There are guys that I went through machining here with that own their own shops. So it is definitely possible to just start your own business through that path, right? But I also have huge corporations, and they exist in multiple states. So they have an HR department, they have a marketing department, they have nurses that work inside the factory, they have graphic designers. They have all of these roles that are jobs in the world. They also exist inside manufacturing. So I think that's important too, that when explaining what manufacturing is to people, it's a much broader scope than a guy with a wrench at a machine working on something. So anyway.